the Brexit behind the Brexit vote. And you have people like Deborah Mattison, who's now coming in as Keir Starmer's chief strategist, who talks about the red wall seats. Even Peter Mandelson has said, we've got to listen to the we've got to listen to the Leave sentiments. And and you do have a fissure in this country. You have social classes A, B, and C, broadly in varying degrees pro-European. 27% in one opinion poll the Observer did just a couple of weeks back want to rejoin the European Union. Now, the 22% want closer affiliation with the European Union, outnumbering by nearly 10% those who want either kind of to retain the status quo or even more separation. I mean, it's quite interesting, despite the bad press that Brussels and the EU has been getting, there's still a powerful kind of pro-European kind of voice in British politics. And who are they? Well, it's Gradland. It's the university. It's people who've got A levels, university education, or professional kind of education, or skills education of one form or another. It's people who live in our large cities. It's people who we know who they are. And actually, come on, those of you who are the kind of take a long view of English history, and I sometimes remind people about this. Talking about civil war. I mean, when the Civil War began in 1641, who were the people who were the parliamentarians? Well, they weren't the majority. I mean, the country was split. They were the educated, the religious, the prosperous, the merchant class. That's who they were. And true England was meant to represent, rural England, really, who barely actually kind of joined in the Reformation. And actually, ultimately, London and Manchester and Birmingham won. And this is why I said to people like Matthew Goodwin or even Deborah Mattison, I want to level Rochdale up with all my heart. I think I think that the kind of fall in life expectancy and the kind of conditions in the Midlands and the north of England and parts of the southwest, I mean, Cornwall, which voted, for Brexit, I mean, parts of Cornwall, I mean, and parts of Blackpool, I mean, the conditions are scarcely better than they are in a less developed country. What do you think they're going to do? And how can it happen? How could it have happened that we allowed our kind of economy and policy and society to develop in such a way? And actually, I understand our Ds and Es who are Brexit voters, kind of not as people who represent the true heart of beating England. I see them as actually people who have not been able to kind of share in the kind of worldview and prosperity that those of us who in the ABCs have been able to do, or part of the kind of adult working population in the big cities, and that's how I understand the Brexit vote.
Thank you, Will. Will, I'd like to now open the. I know, no, it's great. I know, I get your point. But I want to do. Don't go. Stay there. I'm going to and hold that thought because I'm going to now hand over to my colleague Nikki Robson, who's going to be running the question and answer session. Nikki, over to you. Will, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Pamela. And thank you, Will. It's so refreshing to hear your lucid, insightful views sort of juxtaposed with the daily diet of the jibber jabber, the empty 3-word slogans and things that we're subjected to on an almost daily basis. So it's really refreshing to hear me. Now, we've got lots of questions. Before we get to them, I just wanted to say a general thank you to everybody for your patience. Our host, unfortunately, had a power cut right at the beginning of the meeting and wasn't able to let you in. By the power of osmosis, someone called Catherine Reynolds, to whom we owe a huge debt of gratitude, was able to let people in because she became the host. So thank you, Catherine, wherever you are. You've done a great job for us. So lots and lots of questions. I will come to you as individuals and ask you to put your question to Will. So we've got just around half an hour, so we'll try and zip through as many as possible. So I'm going to start with Martin Ricks. Would you like to put your question to Will?
I will. So this isn't specifically about the EU. This is more about picking your brains as a journalist and your background in journalism. So I wonder if you could give us a few thoughts on the reported changes it's been in the press over today and the last few days to the Official Secrets Act, From what I've read, it aims to sources, editors, and reporters from using unauthorized disclosures. So that, to me, signals the end of whistleblowing. And also, there's something in there about publishing pieces that could embarrass the government and see journalists and editors prosecuted for that. I was wondering if you had any thoughts.
Look, I mean, there is quite a dark attempt by the government to kind of, well, not kind of, to close down. I mean, you know, to centralize and close down. One of the features of Johnson's levelling up speech was, you know, that he didn't want to give much away to kind of devolved counties and shires. Actually, he wants to hold power at the centre. And whether it be Priti Patel on, you know, the discretion to stop street protests, or whether it be, you know, tightening up what you see on the Official Secrets Act, whether it be trying to get Paul Dacre in to be chair of Ofcom. I mean, it's quite, and whether actually the ongoing refusal to put up people on Newsnight, which I occasionally find extraordinary. They put up spokespeople on Newsnight, and kind of petty vindictiveness, which I find very problematic. Look, I mean, you know, behind there's a fundamental ambiguity in Johnson. I mean, he is the professed libertarian who actually wants to control. I mean, it's like GB News. I mean, the professed freedom, they believe in freedom of speech, except when Gooty Harry wants to take the knee, he can't do it. You know, it's you know, as long as you share my views, you're free to express them, but not if you don't. It's very dark. Whether all the legislation will get through as unamended, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how strong Johnson's political base is going to be, given kind of the way this kind of third leg of the epidemic is kind of transpiring. But you're right to kind of open up with that question. I mean, all I can say as a kind of is I don't like it. I think there'll be powerful objections to it. And here's a point which I hope is true. I think it's quite difficult to deliver this degree of culture change and degree of practice in the way we're governed and the way we're legally kind of organized and what we're legally allowed to say and protest. It's quite difficult to do it with such a narrow political base, such a narrow cultural base, and where, you know, I'm not actually sure that actually the leaders of the Tory party actually in their heart of hearts believe it. So I don't have a good answer for you, except to say that you're right to draw our collective attention to it. And, you know, from my knowledge of editors of the Observer and Guardian, Financial Times, who I've known well over the years, you know, I am sure that they will carry on practicing. If they get leaks, they'll do what they've always done, publish them. And if the government tries to throw them in jail, they'll go to jail. And I'm not sure that the Tory government will actually want to find itself, you know, grouped, you know, in the West as doing the same kinds of things that Putin does in Russia. I think it'll, you know, I think Priti Patel is has a very limited political antennae. I mean, she plays entirely to her base and doesn't see how things work out in the wider public arena. This is something that may come up to bite them.
Yeah, thank you for that, Will. Thanks for your question, Martin. Next we'll go to David Hogg. David, are you ready with your question?
Yes, my question is related to the pinging. Why on earth are the Tory government so stupid that they say 16th of August, if you're double vaccinated, you don't have to, you can ignore the ping, when they should do it now because the food chain, the lorries and on the road, hospitals, dentists, doctors are all threatened by this.
Look, this is my view on this debate, and I hope it'll shed some light for all of you. Um, if Tony Blair had succeeded in getting ID cards through in the fag end of his government in 2008-9, so we'd have known who was here, we could have lanced the toxicness of the immigration argument that was used so successfully by Farage and co. To win the referendum. Nobody knows that better than Michael Gove and the Libertarians, who kind of, are the dynamic element in the government and the dynamic elements in the Conservative Party. Anything that smacks of an ID card, a COVID passport, which is the obvious thing, and where we're going to end up, obviously. And it's absolutely obvious that everyone who's been double jabbed should have some kind of passport, meaning they don't have to isolate for so long, that they can get access to mass events and all the rest of it. I went to watch the tennis at Wimbledon. It was quite simple, actually. Just showed I've been double vaccinated and I went. Same thing at Wembley, for the Euros. And it should of course be the case for the nightclubs. But the Weatherspoon is a powerful voice. He was a Brexiter, and he doesn't want this. He kind of reserves against it. And these people, they have the inside lines to the faction that runs the country. And so, rational things like ensuring that you only start to relax social distancing rules to work at home and all the rest when at least 80% of the population or more are double vaxxed. And in the meanwhile, you permit opening on a controlled basis by having a COVID passport or a COVID certificate, which also should allow you to travel abroad. That would be the rational way of doing it. It would have succeeded. It would have got us out of the mud. And when we go back into the European Union, it will be the president for some kind of ID card that will permit us to kind of keep the anti-immigration kind of politics at bay. The strategists in the Tory party know that, the libertarian instincts know that, and that's why you confront the muddle that you confront. That's my view. And I've talked to enough people to kind of, I get scraps of information which helps me to support it.
Thank you, Will. And the names that you're mentioning there, I think you talked about loathing for Johnson. I think loathing spreads beyond Johnson to the likes of Priti Patel, Gove, and the Weatherspoons chap, who we won't even mention by name. So next question, Catherine Reynolds. Catherine, you're our superstar this evening. Would you like to ask Will your question? Are you still there, Catherine?
Hello, yes. You're welcome. I've got my own Zoom account, which I think it just transferred to somebody who'd got their own Zoom account to host it. So you're absolutely welcome about sorting out, letting people in. Right, my question relates to what we as people who are keen to maintain closer links with the European Union should be doing now. And it seems to me that an awful lot of people who did vote leave in the referendum, who I have spoken to quite recently, are now in the position of beginning to wake up to the fact that they were lied to. But there is very little about this on the BBC, for example, which a lot of these people still watch as their main source of news and information. There's very little in a lot of the newspapers, apart from The Observer and The Guardian, and sometimes the Daily Mirror. And it seems to me that our job now, when we can, is to get out on the streets and start passing on the facts as they really are to people, really getting some of this information across. Now, I know that there are bans on people protesting now, because that's something that's been snuck through under the cover of COVID by this government, but there's nothing to stop us having street stalls, engaging with people and doing surveys about what people feel about the government now. Those are not protests, those are just information gathering. And it seems to me there are ways we could do this as Remainers. What do you think, Will, as a process for us beginning to get information out there?
I'm basically sympathetic to what you argue. I mean, I think that will we be able to get organize 1 million strong street marches like we did against the Iraq War and like we did for the People's Vote campaign? I think again, I think withdrawing a fundamental liberty with such a narrow political base is really problematic. And I think the Home Secretary will have to commit these things to go forward. You can't wall up the dam, or else what you do is you have the kind of scenes that you have in less developed countries. So, but I mean, legitimately, posters, street strolls, leafleting, WhatsApp groups. I mean, I always say to people that actually I'm a one-man proselytizer. I go to buy some garden shears. Go to buy some milk. I engage with the people around me. I ask them what they think, and I do so. I think that every conversation you have makes a difference. It's part of the construction of a culture. So, I mean, one of the difficulties is that people aren't going to. We humans are acknowledging that one's made a mistake. It's not something one does readily, and I think that we may have to go through some years of being obvious. Being told there's a lie is one thing. Living the consequences of a lie is wholly another, and much more convincing. So my view is that you do all that you have said, and we carry on making the argument. And I do think things like the kind of bylines magazines or the bylines newspapers are important. And I think I subscribe to the European. I hope you all do. It's getting better, I think. And remember that politicians are in the votes business, and actually they're in the votes business like businesses in the kind of sales business. And actually, if they think that actually making European noises is going to win them votes, they'll stay there. They'll make those noises. And the stronger we are, the more vocal we are, the more present we are on the streets, the more obvious it is that you can't neglect us.
It seems to me that COVID has been a good cover for them to actually not have the sort of protests that we could have done over the last 18 months if we hadn't had, a global pandemic raging. And that actually means that they've been able to forget about us. It seems to me that when it is safe to do so, we need to be getting out there and making sure they know we haven't actually gone away.
I'm with you. I mean, I'd like to see the European movement and grassroots really get together and launch a kind of major poster campaign this autumn.
Yeah, you can rely on groups like us to be back on the streets as soon as we think we can have some kind of effect. Yeah. So just moving on now to, I'm going to come now to Caroline Foden. Caroline, are you there?
Yes. Hi, I'm here. I'm on two devices because one has no sound. So sorry about that. It's a bit confusing. So Catherine kind of, I was going to ask sort of something similar along the lines of Catherine, which was that I feel that the pandemic was the ultimate gift to Boris following Brexit, because actually all of those things that we're now seeing appear, like, the trouble with the creative industries and exporters and young people not being able to get visas and all that kind of stuff, is just being hidden under this umbrella of, oh, well, pandemic, that's the result of COVID. And with the right-wing media being the way it is in this country, which I blame pretty heavily for the Brexit vote in the first place, how are we going to get people to see that there are actually effects of Brexit which are really damaging, which are nothing to do with COVID, but are just being hidden under this sort of blanket excuse? How do we get that out there?
I mean, look, I think that I share your frustration. I mean, look, I write my stuff and I have my public platform, but it's, and my tweet account and all that, but it's not, I do the best I can, but it's not, I'm constantly aware how small it is and what one's up against. But I console myself with, you know, two or three, console myself isn't the right word, actually. I mean, I embolden myself with two or three thoughts. One, you know, and I can, if it was a live room and you're all in front of me, I suspect I could probably kind of sense your kind of incredulity. But I do think that you know, ultimately facts will out. Facts will out. You know, and Britain didn't want to. I mean, Churchill didn't want to give up India, but that, you know, facts will out. I mean, ultimately, we didn't want to join the common market as it was then, but facts will out. And I actually think that you know, the sheer facts of you know, Britain being a medium-sized European country, which, I mean, laughably, you know, can't engage the idea it could be a Pacific power is kind of, I mean, comic. I mean, really comic. And I was with a group of Tories 2 weeks ago when England were playing Denmark, actually. And some of them had been to the Mansion House, and I said to them, you know, to hear Chancellor Sunak say that because the European Union shut to financial services, in his Mansion House speech, he advocated that we had to get closer to Beijing. And I said that very same morning, the Financial Times had splashed with a story about the Japanese and Chinese and American navies doing kind of wargaming in the South China Sea for potential kind of war with China over Taiwan, because there's been 30 overflights of Taiwanese airspace by the Chinese military. And the Chancellor's Exchequer is, you know, like kind of, you know, and like 1936, peace in our time, you know, is saying you've got to cozy up to the very people with whom our major allies in the Pacific are eyeing the possibility of war over. You know, facts will out. I mean, the sheer stupidity of Britain's position in trying to be a Pacific power, the way geopolitics are working in Asia is ludicrous. You know, who do we line up with? Kind of India, America, Australia, and Japan, or with the Chinese? Or do we try and be sweet to all of them, or do we say that actually our markets are in Europe, which is where we have to build our destiny? And you know, so don't actually, you know, first I think facts will out. That's to say, and even the right-wing press actually has to kind of come to terms with the fact that there are facts. Secondly, I mean, the argument about Europe was lost in the Tory party. I think the argument for Europe is going to have to be won in the Tory party. I mean, and the way we're going to win it is actually denying them office. It's really important that actually pro-European parties win in 2023 or 2024. And when the Tory party is denied a majority in the House of Commons, because, you know, your Common Garden Tory is very much a careerist, like kind of, you know, Diana Harding, you know, using the
Alex Chalk
to advance her career, you know. And actually, I think that, you know, once they have an electoral reverse and once they carry on losing, they're going to change. And actually, it's when our mainstream party of the right changes that actually we'll start to win the argument. And actually, we can go the whole way from being inside the single market and customs union to being full members of the European Union. And it's only when our party of the right change that actually, or a significant part of it changes, that actually the Europeans want us back in, frankly. So, I mean, the facts will out.
You're giving us hope, Will. You're giving us hope. This is what we want to hear.
Sorry about
No, it's good. It's great. It's great. Just conscious we've got a few more questions. Anthony Lowe, I can see you on the screen. Would you like to ask Will your question, Anthony? You're muted.
Right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
If the Northern Ireland Protocol is unfit for purpose for all parties, which is where it seems to be at the moment, could this be a lever to a comprehensive review of the TCA?
This is very interesting indeed. I fear that actually what's going to happen over Northern Ireland is continual kicking of the can down the road. But of course, there are elections next year. And the unionists, I think, are going to lose the elections. I mean, or they're certainly not going to be able to form a government. And if the Alliance Party and Sinn Féin end up being holding a kind of the majority installment, it really will change the dynamic, because you then have the possibility of under the Green Friday Agreement, moving towards a kind of a referendum on reunification and the whole damn thing. This is if you had a more supple negotiator than Lord David Frost, that some kind of compromise could be reached. And this is one of the reasons why I think that the Johnson will fall before the end of this Parliament. That there's a variety of issues which could bring him down, and one is that there plainly has to be a compromise in Northern Ireland, not a shouting match, and there has to be a compromise if you want to hold Northern Ireland inside the Union. And David Frost and Boris Johnson are incapable of delivering that compromise, and people like the Jeremy Hunts and the Christopher Tugendhats and the Damien Greens and the Theresa Mays, Johnny Mercers, who are on the Tory benches, know all this full well. And someone said very tellingly about Johnson that his over the earlier discussions about aid, that his support in the Tory party is a mile wide and an inch thick. And actually, it just needs something like the Northern Ireland Protocol to blow up, or something else. I mean, we haven't discussed how there's a Nissan protocol, of course, in that the Nissan only put their investment in the battery factory in Sunderland on the undertaking that that it would be treated as being in the single market in the customs union. So you have a Northern Ireland effect in there, and you also have a Northern Ireland effect in Ellesmere Port in Vauxhall, where Vauxhall insisted on the same thing. So that all the parts, the British government will actually apply EU regulations for Vauxhall and for Nissan. So you have, this is creeping membership of the single market. As I said earlier, facts are out. Facts will out.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that, Will, and thank you, Anthony. Do we have John Fox? Are you still there, John?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I'm just going to unmute myself. It's a very quick one, Will. What do you think the EU will require from us? In other words, what will they want to see the UK looking like before they even contemplate allowing us to rejoin?
I think what they'll want is two things, actually. I mean, one, they'll want a legal promise that actually any future referendum will only take us out of the European Union again on a 2/3 majority or some such. I mean, there'll be some treaty obligations about, what the terms of kind of leaving again would imply. And secondly, I think they'll want a political reading that actually the Tory party has actually, that the Libertarians in the Tory party are in a minority, and that the Tory party has become, like other parties in the centre-right in Europe, basically committed to the European project. I mean, even Marine Le Pen is committed to the European project. I mean, even Viktor Orban is committed to the European project. I mean, one of the things about the elites in Europe is that and the mainstream membership of the chief political parties, left and right, is they're all committed to the European project. And we lost it when we lost the Tory party to the Brexit party and UKIP, and that insurgency fired up by the right-wing press and a lot of foreign money is why we are where we are. But also that we'd run a disgracefully unequal polity for the 30 years up to 2016, so that the Cornish nor the Northumbrians nor the people on the Yorkshire coalfield felt that they had any stake in it. The rest is history. So I mean, that's my view.
Yeah, thank you. Right, I'm going to try something now. We've got 4 minutes and 4 questions. What are the chances, hey? Let's go see if we can zip through them. Andrew Marshall, would you like to ask your question?
Hello, hi there. Yeah, my question was, what's it going to take to get the the opposition parties to collaborate. I'm over in the Stroud constituency, where it could be argued the presence of a Green candidate denied Labour retaining the seat. So what can the ordinary voter like me do to persuade opposition parties to collaborate?
I think the opposition parties, two things are going to happen. First of all, there is already quite a degree of collaboration. I mean, the Lib Dems did not campaign in Batley and Spend. Labour did not campaign in Chesham and Amersham, actually. And there's quite a lot of that going on around the country. In Cambridge, there's been a similar effect, actually, in various constituencies. And one of the dangers is that if they don't have a compact, is that actually voters fly blind. And then you rely on, competing. I mean, in the first past the post system, people like you and me want to vote for the winning non-Tory candidate, the winning pro-European non-Tory candidate. That's what we want to vote for, and we don't know who that is. And so, you're flying blind unless they give us a steer. I mean, they have got their head in the sands. They're rather hoping that local parties and local constituency associations and local voters will make up their own minds. There's a problem in the Labour Party in that constitutionally it's obliged to put an MP up in every seat, and I think that's a mistake. And I think that along with going after the left, Keir Starmer should signal that his clause 4 moment should be saying we're not going to put a parliamentary Labour, we're not going to put an MP up in every seat, and divide the vote, and then you may be able to get a cluster of seats like Stroud, where probably Labour should be the candidate, but there are other seats, as in Bristol, where it should be the Green that should be the candidate, and you just.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know it's there are a lot of passions running high, but it seems kind of to a neutral like me, it does seem a bit of a no-brainer. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Tony, go on.
I got in trouble with the last election because I backed what was his name, the Tory who became a Lib Dem who was competing in North Kensington. What was his name?
Yes, he was great. I had a podcast, didn't he?
Anyway, I forget. Anyway, they are seen at early onset dementia. But anyway, and the sitting Labour MP,
Sam Gyimah.
Was it
Sam Gyimah?
Sam Gyimah, yeah. That was it.
Thanks, Andrew.
And all the opinion polls said that Sam Gyimah was the one to back against the Tory, but actually it turned out that the Labour candidate was who actually held that was the sitting MP was the one to support. And of course my friends went apeshit. But what am I supposed to do? I want to use my vote intelligently and my voice intelligently. And actually, more of us will want to do that in 2023, 24 than we did even in 2019. And the political parties, bury their head in the sand by not acknowledging the way people like us on this call feel. And I will say this to whoever I can make it said to, and so you can be sure I'll make that point, and that it might use what little influence I have.
Yeah, brilliant. So, a couple of more questions then. Last two, Tony McCobb. Are you there, Tony?
Oh, yes, I am.
Great.
Yeah, everybody loathes, or nearly everybody loathes Johnson and wants to get rid of him. My problem is quite simply, if you get rid of Johnson, there is nobody else who I think would be a respectable or acceptable leader of the Tory party. Who is that?
There are some people actually the Tory party. It's such a complicated organisation. There are good MPs in there who keep their head down. Neil O'Brien, who Johnson turned to over Levelling Up, very good man, actually. There's what's his name, Danny, MP for Wiltshire, who was asked to do some work on Levelling Up. Again, don't underestimate the capacity of the Tory party to produce some good people. The fact that the talent pool from which they recruited this cabinet is extremely narrow. They're perfectly capable of producing a charismatic kind of someone in the late 30s, early 40s, who's kept his or her head down through this madness and will come through. You watch, mark my words. They're perfectly capable of finding some. Don't worry that the Tory party will not find someone to succeed Johnson who's extremely plausible. They will. They They may take them a couple of goes to get there, but they'll get there.
Let's hope he's less loathsome than the current incumbent. Last question, Adam Molliver. You're muted.
Yeah, well, yes, it's partly been done, but I think the next Prime Minister will be Jeremy Hunt, and surely it will be 2030 that he'll lose the election, and only then will we be looking at Europe to let us back in, which they, as you've already said, will be reluctant to do. So I take a much more pessimistic view than you.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Adam. Just before I hand back to Adrian, Chris Hammond. Chris, you wanted to give a quick plug to the very important Festival for Europe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nikki. I'll try and be as brief as possible. The idea was mooted in January. We formed a working party. We've developed it to the point that we've actually got a company, and we've got the idea was to have a festival, 3-day festival at the end of summer, but that's developed into the Summer of Europe. I'm co-leader of that, also chair of East Kent European Movement. The idea is that we have a festival across the nation and over a length of time, launching in May the 4th next year, 2022, and series of events. United Strings of Europe are on board. The Music Venue Trust with 900 venues are on board. We're expanding quite a lot. We are getting to the point where, as Will Hutton said, we want to give people hope, and there is hope. It's going to be a fantastic event next year. Not event, but a series of events, co-branding, piggybacking on existing events, and we want to extend into Europe.
That's fantastic, Chris. And that's starting off May next year, I think you said.
That's right. I'm going to put my email address in the chat. Please, anyone who would be able to help a minimal amount. We really need people now at this point to help us get that through. Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome, Chris. And
you want people? What do you want?
Sorry?
What do you want? Do you want money? Do you want people? I'm very happy to put my shoulder to the wheel, by the way, just to say.
Okay, well, yes, we are seeking donors. We've got someone on board who who's approached Mercedes and BMW in Germany and big donors.
Well, that's an offer you can't refuse, isn't it? I think, Chris.
Yeah, I'm going to put my Will. If you can get in touch, we can liaise, and I'll put my email address there.
Brilliant, fantastic.
Liaise with the organisers, because I'd be keen to help support.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Will.
Okay, over to you then, Adrian.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you. Just say to Chris, I heard just what you're saying, and I think we will certainly want to try and help in Cheltenham for Europe, and we'll make sure that we discuss that. So we picked up your name and we'll be in touch with you.
Well, in fact, I was going to send an email to all chairs of the European movement, and also get in touch with Richard Wilson, Grassroots for Europe. We're getting to that point. I've also liaising with some places for the Jubilee weekend over in Germany, Coburg, as in Saxe-Coburg, and Glücksburg, Sonderburg up in Schleswig-Holstein. So we are not limited to just the UK. We're thinking big.
Great, Chris. Okay, well, I will pass that message on to our new chair, who is, as from now, Flo Klukas, and she's on the call. So there's some of you to know Flo.
There's my email address, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, these are dark times. I think that's pretty obvious from the kind of questions you've been asked throughout the evening. But I feel that what you've given us is a sort of source of hope and confidence. And we need to be reminded from time to time that, well, a couple of things that you said that really made a register with me, that support for Johnson is a mile wide but an inch thick. I think that describes exactly the position. And your repeated message that facts will out. I think they will out. And I think it's no accident that despite the government, despite the mass media support for Brexit, today, YouGov says still 47% of the population think Brexit was a mistake, and 41% don't. So we're still the majority, the people who believe in the future of Europe. in the majority in this country. And I think that gives us the basis upon which we can hope for something better. So thank you very much. That was far, far better than listening to Mr. Cummings. But if we need to catch up with Mr. Cummings, we can always do that quite easily. I want just once more to say I'm sorry that we had an initial technical slip up. We had a power cut, and thanks to Catherine, we were able to overcome that. Those who've been watching it, I hope you will think about making a contribution to Cheltenham for Europe. In the chat box, there is a link there for you to do so. So go to that right now and click on the button and make a donation. We'd really appreciate that. We will be obviously not very active in August, but we were back in September with meetings and events under our new chairman. And we already have one speaker lined up. We don't yet have a date, well known to many of you, AC Graining.
Great.
But we need some others too. So AC Graining is fantastic, but he will tell you, like Will, what we want to hear. We also want, I think, to be a bit more challenged as well by people who say, well, maybe Brexit was a good idea. So I think we'll try and have a bit more diversity in our speakers. Thank you again, Will. That's been a great evening. And thank you all for coming and joining us. And we wish you well and have a good holiday and keep warm. Okay. Good night to you all.
Good night. Thank you, Will.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
I still think he's rather optimistic. But,
we should have heard Jean Miller then. Quite a nice sort of.
oh, was she pessimistic? Yeah. Yeah. Well, not this side, you know what I mean. Are you staying on to do something?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Chris, are we able to? Yeah, are we able to have a transcript of the chat? Do you know?
I don't know actually. I'll check it out. I'm so grateful that the power cut came 3 minutes before the meeting started, just as I was about to let everybody in. It's unbelievable, but thanks for rescuing it. And thanks to the person. I think what happened was that the host passed to the first person who came into the meeting.
Well, that was.
And unfortunately, she's a member. You know, she's a Zoom registered person, so save the day. Brilliant.
I mean, I sent round an Eventbrite email to everybody to say that there'd been a localised power cut.
Yeah,
to get people in ASAP.
It was mentioned in the chat. I noticed that someone went to Eventbrite for a contribution, and they didn't get a good message. It said something about the link takes to Cheltenham for Europe Eventbrite page, but it says sales ended.
Oh, drat.
So we'll have a look and check it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because the event ended.
Anyway, I recorded it from halfway when I came back in when the power cut was over. So I'll send that to you, Sarah, and then we can circulate it around.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you. So next time we need to sort of make sure we've got sort of Zoom. Yeah. Zoom hosts that can sort of, you know, if one goes down, the other one can stand in.
Yeah, well, I could have done that if I made people co-hosts. If you make, I could have made them hosts. I probably should have done because I had an inkling that there was power problems in the lane. But if you do that, then you're okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. It must have been a bit sort of nerve-wracking to say that.
It was absolute disaster, but thank goodness we pulled it back anyway. It's very good. Well done. I'm going to end.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, lovely.
So all the best.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And you. Bye. Bye.